Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out. Hi, everybody. It's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to conduct an interview with an industry leader. Today we have Chris Hokom, and Chris is a strategic partner of Progress Coaching and a master trainer. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
Good, good. And one of the things that you've put on your profile and on your LinkedIn profile, and certainly some of your marketing materials, is master trainer. What does that entail?
Well, master trainer really is someone that helps trainers, newly starting trainers or existing trainers, help them develop their skills and help them be more proficient and effective in the training room by using adult learning environment techniques and really learning the psychology of the training room. And I think probably the greatest reward of being a master trainer is really helping trainers set up their careers moving forward, putting them on the right path towards generating dialogue in the training room and not treating it like a classroom, but really having a collaborative environment and really just setting them up for success for when they get back to their organizations.
Is that one of the reasons you somewhat transitioned and added coaching? I mean, you haven't left training, but you've added coaching to your arsenal?
Absolutely, Tim. One of the things that I always felt bad about was when I would leave a group of newly certified trainers to go back to their credit unions and start delivering sales, service, and leadership programs. I was always worried about whether or not they were going to have the reinforcement necessary from leadership, from management, from supervisors. And when I was exposed to Progress Coaching, I thought, well, this is the key. If we can get our leaders to start coaching and reinforcing training messages delivered by the trainers, then it's a win-win situation. And coaching is by far the best way to go about doing it.
And you actually just mentioned credit unions. That's really kind of your history. Give us a little bit of your history of why. I mean, you've somewhat specialized in credit unions. You certainly work with non-credit union organizations. You know, what's your history? Where does that come from, and how has that positioned you with your business right now?
That's a great question. I started working with credit unions back in 1990 as a public relations person and got involved in the credit union industry and quickly found that my niche was the training side. I was the PR director at a credit union in Tacoma, Washington, and took on the training function, and that's where I basically started becoming a master trainer, going through the rigors and the certifications necessary to make that happen.
So what are some of the things you're seeing in credit unions today? I know you have a lot of credit union clients that you're working with their trainers and their direct leadership, their sales, their customer service teams. What are some of the things you're seeing in credit unions? Because this has certainly hit that industry. Not everybody, but certainly some credit unions, it's kind of turned them sideways. What are some of the things you're seeing and observing?
Well, they're continuing to do credit unions specifically are continuing to do a lot of skills training of sales, service, and leadership. But especially with the pandemic going on, it's challenging to get everything together from a coaching perspective and have everything synchronized after the training happens, just simply because of staffing. So doing a lot more virtual coaching, also just coaching over the phone using whatever mechanisms possible to get them to reinforce the training message that's being delivered.
So in terms of virtual coaching, and we hear all the time going back to the new normal, and we hear all the time about, when we get back into the office, and as we both share some clients together, but certainly share credit union clients on our own, I've heard the term hybrid. We're going to have a combination, and I've had a lot of requests as well as, how do we deliver virtual coaching? What has been some of your experiences of where you think managers might be struggling with virtual coaching? And equally, maybe even their employees struggling with virtual coaching? What have been some of your experiences?
Well, obviously the face-to-face coaching is the best because you can read the nonverbals. You can there's a lot of things, additional things you can pick up on that you might not be able to pick up over the virtual setting. Uh, they're accepting it because everybody's completely zoomed out right now. They attend, but how dialed in are they because of so many Zoom meetings, so much virtual communication? That's what we're working on right now is how do we refine that and make it even better.
Yeah, we've actually had a client, a non-credit union client, does something very interesting, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this. One week they'll put the video camera on, the next week they will have it off, and so they stagger it because this, like you and I are actually not going to have video in our podcast, but we're looking at each other as we record this. This can be very fatiguing. The second thing is they're alternating not only the audio and the video, but they're actually prepping people by sending, questions. Here are the things I'm going to ask you to prep. What are some of the things that you've seen as it relates to virtual coaching?
Well, when using the virtual setting, it's obviously it's very important to have resources available, tools that you can put in their hands so that they can join the training and be a part of it and be actively involved in the virtual setting. So I like to have the program materials in their hands so that they can utilize those and go through them and review them as we're talking so that they're involved and they're engaged in the process as well.
And I guess, it's interesting because when we've gone from this new, coaching where people are coaching and now we're in this new virtual world or hybrid world, what are some of the areas that you're also experiencing? Because, we hear it all the time: motivation, attitude, teamwork. What are some of the things that you have heard during this pandemic crisis where coaching is really needed?
Well, it's pretty much, everybody's coming back to the workplace with some form of damage because of the COVID, because of the social unrest, because of everything we've gone through with politics over the last year. So people are coming back with some damage, and it's important that we're on the lookout for that so that we can identify those individuals that are struggling and apply the coaching accordingly, giving them support, showing them empathy, letting them know that, hey, they're welcome back to the organization. We're going to try and get things back on track as quickly as possible, be a part of this movement of getting us back on track and moving forward. So it's really setting the stage for everybody coming back, getting back together as a team, but they need those coaches to make it happen. It's absolutely critical that they're continually bringing up issues that might be getting in the way of productivity because of people coming back to the workplace. And again, with a lot of things on their minds, they got kids at home and daycare and all kinds of crazy stuff happening. So really helping the coaches help them get focused in the workplace. And that's the biggest benefit I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you because I think in the last 2 weeks, I've had requests from clients on resilience and change. Our people need to learn how to accept change. And it's always funny, and I would love your feedback on this. I laugh at that request. I don't laugh at my clients, but I laugh at they've always faced change. And I think this is one of the few times that change was not negotiable, even in the minds of employees, because you can't look at your boss and say, no, I'm coming into the office. I'm not going to work from home. That change has been thrust upon people in credit unions, non-credit unions. And then the second thing is resilience. I think people are really learning about themselves. And I totally agree with you in terms of the stress, the anxiety. I've got kids who are working virtually in the next room. I just had a call like that yesterday. Yet, at the foundation of everything that, whether it's training or coaching, is change. We're asking people to improve. Inherently, there's a foundation of change. What are some of the things that you're seeing or experiencing as it relates to change with the people that you're working with?
Well, change just simply from a structural standpoint. A lot of organizations I'm working with are retooling, they're reorganizing, they're restaffing. So they're bringing on new people into the organization. So of course, base training and introductory training is really important, getting people to understand the organization and what they stand for. And kind of setting the stage for how we're going to kind of take care of each other moving forward. We're going to walk through this hand in hand. We're in this together, and it's not just you guys do the job and I'll sit up here in my office and tell you what to do and manage things, but actually be involved and coach and understand the employees better. I think it's a great opportunity to really get in and find out more about your employees now, especially when they might be a little bit vulnerable because of the pandemic.
Well, you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting as you said new people. I don't have any experience in this. Do you do any work in the field of onboarding and working either with employees or positioning managers to onboard? Because I hadn't really thought of that till you just mentioned that is, new people coming into an organization's got to be really funky and weird today. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've got many of my organizations that do the onboarding, and I work with them closely on that. It's really about welcoming them into an organization in an unusual setting because not as you don't have the same staffing around. People are working from home, so they're coming into a building where they're basically the only people there going through onboarding training. So it's an interesting environment to begin with. This is really where the coaching comes into play because they're taking in all this information in an onboarding process. It can be a little bit overwhelming for some, and if they're not receiving the coaching necessary after that onboarding training, you're going to lose at least half of the impact that the training had. So absolutely critical to get coaches involved early on in the process, introductions, make sure they understand each other, get a little bit of an idea of their personalities, and take a little deeper dive at the beginning of onboarding, of really understanding the employees instead of waiting until you meet with them a couple of weeks down the road.
Yeah, it's great points. And you think about everything with the pandemic and onboarding, change, resilience. And, another area that I just did a podcast in is sales. And I think to a certain extent, sales has been turned upside down. I mean, whether it's credit unions or non-credit unions, it's so interesting to me because, companies aren't paying gas mileage bills or traveling bills. And there was just a study out by McKinsey that said, I think it was roughly 68% of buyers are now preferring to buy virtually or on demand. They're okay with not having the in-person sales presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's been, I know you do a lot of work with sales organizations and especially in credit unions. What have you seen from the sales being kind of hit by this, and what are some things that organizations are doing to kind of, for lack of a better description, kind of right the ship when it comes to sales and selling?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, especially in the credit union industry, where so much of their interaction is based on face to face, and you're dealing with member owners, so it's a little bit different environment. When we think about training and the virtual setting and trying to get people to understand the sales component as well, it's more of a challenge doing it virtually when, again, you're not in the office with the person and being able to, you can read nonverbals virtually, but you just don't get the same feel for the individual. So I think that's one of the drawbacks in sales is on a virtual setting, it's an opportunity to dig in deeper and determine some additional needs and find out what that client actually values. So I think that's absolutely critical when moving into this environment.
Yeah, it's so interesting because sales today has been, as you and I have been doing virtual work for years and years, where someone, for lack of a better description, ahead of the curve. And it's so interesting to me to watch or hear salespeople talk about, well, I like to read the body language. And I said, well, what if the body language was also a deterrent? What if a guy has a tick or he tends to fold his arms and things like that? And you might read into that more thinking, uh-oh, it's going south. And I think what it's really done, and I would love your insight from your work with your clients, is, I think we need to get back to the fundamentals of asking good questions, really listening. Like you and I are doing this podcast right now and we're looking at each other on this tool, even though there won't be a video. You and I are very comfortable doing this. I have found, wow, are people uncomfortable being on camera? And the flip side is these are the very people who love to be in front of groups of people selling. And so that transition to that virtual world, even for customers, I had one yesterday where the customer absolutely just said, I don't want to turn my camera on. And it was a dynamic shift because I felt like I was a radio disc jockey. What are some of the things you're seeing in terms of challenges with sales and the transition to the new selling world?
Well, I think that staying coordinated with your management, because you're out there selling and you're out in the virtual world. Are we engaging enough? Are there leaders and coaches engaging with them to find out what's really going on in their world. What are the challenges they're facing? What can we do to overcome some of those objections that you're running into? So here is an area where coaching is absolutely critical, especially in the state we're in today. Having those coaches engaged shows that somebody's got their back, somebody's there to help them out, someone's there to guide them through the process, give them additional skills that they can use to be more successful salespeople.
Well, I got to share this with you as a quick story, and I think you know the story. Is I have a client that was actually hitting their numbers, and they had to go virtual like the rest of us. And he said, we're now selling, and their tool of choice is Zoom, and there's certainly other tools out there like WebEx and other tools. And he said, how do I capture that? And I said, well, there's a variety of tools like Kronos. We use Fireflies, and it was so interesting because about 2 weeks after watching the recordings of actual sales presentations with a company hitting their numbers, he called me up screaming, my gosh, we don't even know what we do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, we literally don't represent our products well. And this is not a pot shot, because you and I both serve the role of sales in our companies, and selling's tough. And selling in the virtual world presents some different challenges. Yet it's really interesting because in this new virtual world, and this is now going to come off a little bit as a slight to the selling industry, and I don't mean it that way, we can now capture reality. Because nobody's going out and visiting with a customer, coming back to the office and saying, Chris and Tim, I didn't ask good questions. I interrupted the prospect. Oh, by the way, I don't know our products very well. We know that exists somewhere. Yet this new world is presenting, for lack of a better description again, a dose of reality. Your thoughts?
Absolute dose of reality. And, being able to sell in the virtual world is challenging. There's more steps you need to take. There's follow-up involved that's absolutely critical in virtual selling. So the shift is happening. It's happening slowly for some organizations. I think that's our responsibility, is to get in there and let them know the value of coaching, the value of training, and how that can apply in the virtual world in an effective manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have a pretty wide background in terms of the things that you're doing for clients. Give us a 30 to 60 second overview of kind of your sweet spot, what you like to do with companies where you feel like you've brought some value to your clients. And equally as important, how does someone get a hold of you?
Yeah, great question. What we try to do at Morrison Morrell is provide our clients and predominantly credit unions with affordable world-class training and coaching. The cost of training and coaching has skyrocketed, and we have a great program that's affordable, that's effective, and that helps their organizations get away from that manager mode for the yell, tell, command, and demand, and get them into that coaching mode where they're collaborating, asking questions, finding out more about each other. That's really where I see the focus going moving forward. It's just better engagement with employees, better support for them, because they need it now more than ever. And coaching can provide that on a daily, even hourly basis.
Awesome. Well, for our audience, one of the things I want to share is that I've actually worked with Chris and seen Chris in action. And in the podcast, what we'll do is we'll put Chris's contact information, his website. And it's really important. And I think Chris just summarized it beautifully, is that, in a really weird way, people ask, and I just had someone ask me yesterday, how's your business? Almost like in this apologetic tone. I said, actually, business is great. Sadly, this pandemic crisis has pushed people to the forefront. We've really realized people need empathy. They need help with anxiety and stress. Yet we also need them to be resilient and change and perform better and perform differently. And it's kind of a mixed bag. And there's no greater tool than training, but there's no greater tool than training with a follow-up with coaching. So I want to welcome people to share this podcast. And I want to thank you for your time, Chris. Great discussion. I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
My pleasure, Tim.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21 day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.